This is Professor Urbis White. Today we will talk about integers. We'll go over how they work, how we can add them, subtract them, divide them, and multiply them. All right, so this is the introduction part. Let's go and talk about how they work on a number line. Now, this is a number line, and you know that it works like it has a 0 right in the middle, and it goes positive to the right, and it goes negative to the left. And the whole thing goes bigger as we go to the right. This is bigger, and this is smaller. All right. Now, 0 is right in the middle, so we have to put some tick marks to see how things are. So this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and so forth. Let's try to write this 1 on a number line. How can we show that? The 1 on the number line is positive. There is a hidden positive in front of 1. Then it's going to be to the right of 0. And you can show this point A as right here on 1, a dot on the 1. How about negative 2? This one is a negative number. So that means it's going to go to the left. So you have to go negative 1 and negative 2. This is like a mirror image. And you can put a dot at negative 2, and that's your point B. Now, let's look at C. That's a positive. C is going to be on the right. Here's my dot at 3, and that's my point C. How about D? That's negative 4. That's to the left. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. And that's a dot at negative 4. Here's my dot, and that's my D. E, positive. To the right, 1, 2. Here we go. And here's my point E. F, negative 3 to the left. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. F. So, and order the numbers from smallest to largest. What does that mean? It's small this way, bigger that way. So if I want to order them from the smallest one is negative 4. Then comes negative 3. Then comes negative 2. And then you have 1, the positives, and 2, and 3. Here we go. Okay. Let's talk about how we can add these numbers and what the absolute values mean. Okay. An absolute value is simply a distance. Think of it as a distance. And what it is if you have a 0, absolute value means how far away am I from the 0. So when you use the number line again, when somebody says, what's the absolute value of negative 2, that's how you read it. Absolute, this is how you write it, value of negative 2. All right, so what's that mean? How far away is negative 2 from 0? Here's my negative 2, here's my negative 1, and this is 2 steps away from 0. So absolute value of negative 2 is simply 2. Let's look at absolute value of 3. Where's 3? 1, 2, 3. Here's 1, 2, 3. How far away is 3 from 0? It's 3 steps away. Absolute value of negative 4. How many steps away? That is 4 steps away. How about absolute value of 5? 5 steps away. Negative 3? 3 steps away. How about 0? That's a tricky one. How far away from 0 when you're at 0? You're 0 feet away or 0 steps away. So did you notice? When you do absolute values, you always get a positive number no matter what you do. Now that you know your absolute values, we're going to talk about some tricky cases. Let me straighten this out. All right. My tricky cases are when you see a parentheses versus when you see an absolute value. So the first one is you have a negative, you have a parentheses, and another negative. Now just remember this for now until we go and study multiplication. Negative 3 is simply positive 3. Now let's look at this absolute value problem. You have negative, absolute value negative 3. You have to do the absolute value first, which is 3. And guess what? You have this negative in front of it. The whole thing will turn into a negative 3. So absolute value of negative absolute value of negative 3 is simply negative 3. Don't mix it up with these two. Let's look at this one now. When you see a positive negative with parentheses, we'll learn this in multiplication again, you always get a negative. So positive, negative, negative, positive will always give you a negative. And when you see no positive, no negative in there, so if you let's put a negative here. So if you have positive, negative 4, this is a negative 4. It doesn't matter what order they are in. If you have negative, positive 4, that's also negative 4. So did you see that? You have a double negative, it becomes a positive when you have parentheses with the absolute value, it stays in. And when you have positive negative or negative positive, it doesn't matter, you still get a negative number. Let's look at some of these cases. You have a positive, and then you have absolute value. You have to do absolute value first. And what do you have? A positive. Okay, that kind of brings us to this redundant positive situation. When you have a number and there's a positive in front of it, usually people just don't put that positive, but everybody knows it's a positive. So I don't have to put a positive 4, I can just put 4. Or I can put a positive in here, and that doesn't matter. You can just take the positive out because that's redundant, and absolute value of 4 is 4. So kind of pay attention to these positive negative and positive positive cases so that you don't get confused.